So, you want to start to shoot anamorphic, and a super great solution for that is the Sirui Anamorphic lenses. Here I have the 75mm lens, but they also have a 24, a 35 and a 50mm lens. But which one to choose? Should you get them all? Don't you have enough money to get them all? What is the best combination of the lenses if you want to start shooting anamorphic? That is what this video is all about. Oh, and by the way, my name is Klaus and I'm a filmmaker, and I do films or tests like this on my YouTube channel. Also, if you're interested in learning Davinci Resolve, filmmaking and having a look at some pretty cool gear, I would recommend you to subscribe. If you want to support the channel even more, you can push the join button down below and become a member of this channel. But in this video, I'll show you all of the anamorphic lenses. I'll show you what kind of effects you can get out of them, and if you should get one or them all for yourself. So without further ado, let's get right to it.
So Sirui began the journey with the anamorphic lenses with the 50mm 1.8 lens, which were followed up very fast after with the 35mm lens, again at f1.8. Then Sirui produced the widest lens of them all, the 24mm lens. This is not a 1.8 lens, but a 2.8, and it is maybe the lens of them all that has the less anamorphic look. And then the latest lens in this series, or the 75mm anamorphic lens, again at f1.8, and in my opinion this is the most anamorphic of all of the lenses. So for the first test, I'm testing out the field of view, and here on the 75mm at f2.8 and 120 centimeters away from the subject. Please take a look at the background, how blurry it is and how close it is. So to continue this test, I did the exact same shot with the 50mm, again same distance, same f-stop, and now you can see that the separation of the background is not as blurry as on the 75, which it's totally what I'm going to expect. Again, for the next shot, I'm going to go to the 35mm lens, and just to show you how wide that shot actually is. Again, it's 120 centimeters away from the subject to make this comparison fair with the 75mm. And it's pretty nice wide shot, but the separation of the background, it's not as blurry as the 75mm. Here we go to the 24mm shot. This is the widest, and again 120 meters away from the subject, f2.8. It's a lovely wide shot, but it doesn't really give you that blurry background, not even way back at the bushes in the back. So for the next test, I went into the studio just to show you the bokeh and also just again the field of view. Here at the 24mm f2.8, 120 centimeters away from the subject, and there isn't much bokeh about that. So here I go to the 35mm, and again, if you look at the bokeh, it's more rounded and a little nicer. And again, I'm 120 centimeters away from the subject yet again, and this is quite nice. Of course, if I had more space in the background, I could have moved the bokeh balls back, but it's a small studio, so with the 120 centimeters away from subject, that is sometimes a problem. Here is the 50mm lens, again 2.8 and 120 centimeters away from the subject. Please take a look at the bokeh balls. I do think they look pretty darn nice. So here we go to the 75mm. All the settings are the same. The bokeh balls are nice. I did have a little problem keeping myself in focus, and that is due to the 120 centimeters away from the subject. It's pretty hard to nail focus if you're a one-man band filming yourself, so keep that in mind. You need a pretty good monitor so you can monetize better than I did. So for this test, we are doing lens flares, and here on the 24mm f2.8, 120 centimeters away from the subject, this is the widest of the lenses, and it does provide you a pretty good lens flare. Here on the 35, It's a little bit more pronounced in my opinion, but it is a pretty nice lens flare if you're into lens flares. Here on the 50, it's not as sharp as on the 35, and I think that is also giving it a pretty nice look. Again, very nice. And here we go on to the 75mm lens. And in my opinion, this is a pretty nice lens flare, and in my opinion, it's a little bit more anamorphic than the other ones in general, this lens. So here I'm doing a super simple sequence with the 24mm, 3 shots, so you can see the difference. Take a look at the 35mm, and you can actually start to see the difference in the backgrounds here on the 50mm, and it is pretty hard to do these exact same shots with the 50 and also with the 75mm, which is right here. It is because the focus distance is really hard, but I've done this without using diopters. If I wanted to do more close-ups, I would have to use diopters and stuff like that. So I've been using these lenses for quite some time now, and I actually think if you can only afford one of the lenses, I would go with the 35mm lens, because I think this is the one that is most versatile. If you can afford more than one lens, I would go with an option of 2. Either I would go with the 24 and the 50mm lens, or I would go with the 35 and the 75mm lens. Actually, the 35 and the 75mm lens would be my favorite combination of these two, I think. Just one thing to keep in mind with the 50mm actually is that it is more blue than the other ones. Of course, this is a super easy thing to fix in post, but just keep that in mind, that the 50mm lens is more blue than the other ones. Okay, so that was a look at all of the Sirui Anamorphic lenses for the Micro Four Third system. I was shooting all of the footage on my Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera 4K. Anyway, I do hope you found this video useful. If you did, please hit that subscriber button, give the video a like, share it with your friends if you think it would help them out, and if you want to be notified every time there's a new video on this channel, please hit that bell icon down in the corner. Until next time, keep filming, keep learning, and keep sharing.